Good morning, good Sunday morning. Today, what a blessing, what a blessing, what a blessing I have for you. Now, on Sundays, I always do the Sunday sermon notes for my church that we are still having online, but it doesn't matter because we are still coming together collectively online in our homes and getting the word. Get ready for this one today. This is going to be a lot of confirmation for you because it definitely was for me. Let's get into this text. Today, the sermon notes came from the Bible, chapter Exodus 13, verse 17. People everywhere are waiting to get back to normal. What if God is pushing us to a new normal? In the Bible text, the children of Israel for 400 years woke up every day to making bricks and being slaves to Pharaoh. That was their normal. Can God be using this pandemic to move us to a new normal? God took the children of Israel a new way, lest they turned and went back. And a little bit of emphasis on that. When God first brought the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt, they wanted to go a shortcut way. But on that way, they were going to come into contact with the Philistines and there was going to be war. So God knew that the children of Israel would then want to turn and go back. So God took them a new way. Is God taking us a new way to a new normal and a different reality? God is unpredictable in his actions. There are no inconsistencies in God's character. God can take us any route. God is reliable and consistent. That's why during this pandemic, we have not lost our minds. God is pushing us into a new normal. In this pandemic, we are doing all we can to try and get back to normal. But God is continuing to stretch this pandemic out. God is not taking us the shortcut. There are certain things we want and desire, but God knows we aren't prepared to handle it because we want to take the shortcut. God is working in all of our lives in this season to keep us from going back. None of us saw this coming with the pandemic. God is pushing us into a new reality. The text teaches us to thank God, number one, for the sovereignty of God's leading. Trust God's leadership. There is something in that path that you are not prepared for. Just like the children of Israel when they first got released from bondage from Pharaoh, they wanted to go that shortcut, but God took them a different way because the Philistines were out there and there was going to be war. So there is something in that path that you're not prepared for. We must relinquish control. We do not have control. God is in control. We thought we were in control of our lives, but God showed us through this pandemic that we are not in control. God has designed us to trust him. He carries the weight and we must depend on him. Hallelujah. Number two, we must thank God for his leadership. Thank God for the stuff he kept you from and from you. People, situations, jobs. Thank God for the safety of his leading. God is a fence all around us. He even protects us from ourselves. Think on that one now. We can see ahead, but God can see around the corner. Let me say that one again. We can see ahead, but God can see around the corner. Number three, thank God for the significance of his leading. God couldn't give the children of Israel a better future in Egypt, in slavery. God is up to something by using this pandemic to push us into a new reality and future. God doesn't want us to go back. God is using the pandemic to push us into some new roles, new responsibilities, new jobs, and new ministries. God's acts are intentional. Trust God for the reality because He has something for you. Trust God's sovereignty, trust God's safety, and trust God's significance. Trust God's leadership in this pandemic. Just trust God and be blessed. Now, today I have to say, when I first started listening to the pastor preach, he started out slow, talking about the children of Israel and bringing them out of bondage and how they wanted to take their shortcut, but God took them a whole different way. And then the more the pastor preached, and he started breaking it down and just showing how God, like he said, we can see ahead, but God can see around the corner. So God already knows. And like he said, none of us saw this pandemic coming. None of us saw this pandemic lasting as long as it has. And it's going on and on and on and changing a lot of things. So God saw around the corner and He already knew. But now, the good news is that we can just trust God and His leadership to take us on through, because He's got some new things and some new beginning and some new normal for us. So I want to tell you all today, that is good news for us to think on ahead, and we don't have to worry now. Well, I hope you enjoyed this today. So get ready for your week now. You don't have to worry or anything because God is in control and He already sees around the corner. So don't worry about getting back to normal. Get ready for your new normal. All right. Be blessed.